We are now ready to begin the very last lesson of the Genetics and Biotechnology module, and it's Lesson 7, Applications of Biotechnology. We know throughout this whole Genetics and Biotechnology unit, we have been looking at the storyline of the Miller family, where David Miller found out he had hemochromatosis, and his sister Mary became concerned about her risk of having hemochromatosis. So Mary, along with her parents Jack and Jill Miller, all went in to have DNA testing done. We found out in the last lesson that both Jack and Jill Miller are carriers for hemochromatosis, and there's a 25% chance that each one of their children could possibly have hemochromatosis. We know that David received that trait from both of his parents, and so he actually has hemochromatosis. And now Mary is looking a little bit forward and looking at her health along with her doctors. All of her physicians and geneticists are looking very closely and keeping a close eye on her to make sure if she progresses with the disease or not. Okay, but now let's focus back on David for a few moments. We know that he does have hemochromatosis. We know that he has diabetes. We know that he also has some issues with his heart and liver, which stem from the hemochromatosis. He has high blood pressure and so forth. So we're going to look at one of the treatments for hemochromatosis. And we're also going to look into treatments for other common genetic diseases, such as type 1 diabetes. Okay, so one of the applications of biotechnology was the production of insulin. Insulin, we know, is something that people who have diabetes need. It is a very important medicine for them to have so that they can stay healthy. If someone has type 1 diabetes, then they do not produce insulin on their own. Their pancreas does not produce insulin, so they have to take injections of insulin each day to help regulate their blood sugar levels in their body. Sometimes people with type 2 diabetes also have to take insulin, but not always. So what we're going to be doing in this lesson is we're going to be taking a sequence of the gene strips, and we're going to be using those to replicate what would happen if we were going to create insulin in a laboratory. So we're going to be using an example or a model that will model the restriction enzymes. Restriction enzymes are an enzyme that recognizes a specific sequence in DNA, and it cuts that sequence. It might cut out that whole sequence and then put the DNA back together. And so this is sometimes done in a genetic laboratory. And in this case, this would be done to DNA in order for us to force the DNA to code to make insulin. So here is a closer look. If we have this DNA strand, here's the particular site we're looking for where the ACGTCA code is found. And so the restriction enzyme would find that section, and it would cut out that section and then put those ends together. Okay, restriction enzymes, as it says, are picky. They know exactly what they're looking for, and they're not going to cut out things that they do not need to cut out. So we would model that in class by using the paper strip. We will use the scissors to cut out the area where the restriction enzymes would cut in a real cell, and we will make our plasmid sequence strips. So what happens is ligation of the plasmid, and we would create the insulin gene. The plasmid containing the gene of interest is added to the bacterium, and the bacteria will be allowed to grow that insulin gene. So all of that happens in a laboratory under strict conditions. So let's go to our manual and look at lesson 7. I want you to open the manual, which is linked on the assignment, and I want you to read lesson 7. Lesson 7, of course, will start with the introduction that ties the story together. We find out as we do this reading that Isabella, who is one of the nieces of the family, is only 11 years old, and she has recently been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Mary becomes concerned about that because she remembers that her brother David also developed diabetes, and she is concerned that this might be an early sign of hemochromatosis in her niece. She finds out from the doctor that type 1 diabetes is different than type 2 diabetes. With hemochromatosis, people often develop type 2 diabetes. So she knows that Isabella is going to have medical challenges, but that it is not related to hemochromatosis. So you can read all the details here. And then you can read about how biotechnology not only can help with treatment of hemochromatosis, but biotechnology can also help in treatments like for people with type 1 diabetes who are not able to produce insulin on their own. So please make sure that you read all of this in lesson 7. In class, we'll be doing the student protocols to build the model. And then you will be doing Evaluate Your Learning, where you have a few questions to answer. So let's look at your CAMI document. On your CAMI document, you will answer your questions here about biotechnology and about the production of insulin. And there also is a career connection about an agronomist. So agronomy might be a career choice that you might be interested in. You can learn more by visiting the Hudson Alpha Career Profiles. Okay, so to recap lesson 7, you need to watch this video, then open the manual and read lesson 7, and then open and complete your assignment sheet with CAMI.